Wish you all a very happy new year. I look like Ramesh, okay? Rai says I look like Grandmaster Ramesh, okay? Oh, I see a couple of people who might have recognized this position. Well, Narayan, maybe this one you have seen, yes. Still try to do whatever calculation you can, Narayan, without giving it away. All right, guys, so we're going to get started again. I have some positions that we'll go over, but I'm hoping that you guys all followed the chess action in Dubai over the Christmas break or holiday break. We had the World Rapid and World Blitz, lots and lots of chess games. I love watching these live events, and hopefully you guys are following that too. Yeah. So let's jump into our lesson today. And as you can see, this is Black's turn to play. White just played c4, attacking the Black Knight on d5. Let's see, what should we do? Before we start anything, I always like to do some basic assessment of the position. I have talked about this before. And this is very important, okay? This is basically your understanding of the position. You cannot calculate, you cannot come up with best variations or moves if you don't really understand the position. So let's start by that. Give me anything that you think is a basic observation in this position. It does not have to be a move. I mean, it should not be a move or a plan. It should not be a move or a plan. It has to be something that you just simply observe in this position. You can all type it in chat. Let's go. Let's see what you guys have. Okay. Well, White's knight is hanging. That is true. Chat, that's right. White has a 3 versus 2 majority on the king side. Sorry, on the queen side. Pranav is saying white is clearly better. I don't know. I think we have to go to the evaluation yet, Pranav. So you start with observation, and then you go into either calculation or planning, and then you come with evaluation. Hey, Vihan. We are basically going through this position. We are going to do some calculation. But before we do that, first we are looking at the basic observations in the position. Yeah. Weak queen side for Black. A7 rook is misplaced. Okay. I'm just doing screen share today, Ryan. I keep forgetting. You guys keep. I know you always ask for this board. I think today maybe we'll just do screen share. So rook on A1 and rook on A7 is misplaced. I mean, I don't think they're really misplaced. I mean, like, this rook does do a decent defending job. This rook is still not, it's not there in the action yet. Black pawns could become targets. What else? What else? Okay, rook on D1 could be strong. White controls the only open file. All right, good. Most of the important things are done, but maybe one or two important stuff for Black is not done. Yes, so some of you who attended the class, you might have seen this position from before. Still do your calculation. Other than this, you can refresh your memory a little bit, but don't give away the answers. You can always type it in private chat to me. Okay. Potentially trap. Black knight is very comfortable on d5. Okay. Yep. Okay. There is one factor that no one has given for me yet. So I'll tell you what I've gotten so far. I've gotten the majority on the queen side. I've gotten open d file. I've gotten. I think potential weakness on the queen side. I've gotten. I guess this knight on d7 is kind of awkward and it's doing good. Yes. The bishops most likely will get traded. All of this is good. I'll give you a small hint. C5 can be captured. Possible backrank checkmate has been given. Very good. That's definitely there. Yeah. But for that reason, this could be vulnerable because this rook might be doing too many things. Yeah, that's fair too. But let me give you a small hint. In pawn structure, you have to tell me weak pawns and weak squares. I did not hear this completely. Eric, you have a good point. If you try to capture c5, then definitely c4 might be a problem. b5 is definitely an outpost. No one gave me that. There's one more. There is one more. b4 is not an outpost, and d4 is an outpost. And the reason I spent so much time actually talking about this is how things can go wrong. So, for example, I'm going to ask you to visualize the way that black is going to get a big advantage in this position. Let's see who can visualize it and tell me, like a dream position for black. I can see this going wrong very easily for white. And if black, it's very much possible. Takes on f3, then knight c6, knight d4. Fair enough. This is too much of a hope. I don't think white will allow allow this.
Oh yeah, so white's probably gonna trade on b7, but then like bring the knight to d4. That's what I was trying to say.
Trade on b7. I think I didn't hear all of it completely, but I heard about trade on b7 and go to d4.
Yeah. Trade on b7 and then black goes to d4. Probably.
Okay. My dream position is not very likely here. I'll tell you what my dream position is. That is, this bishop is traded for this knight, and this knight ends up on d4. That will be my dream position. Yeah. Okay, but it's not going to happen. I agree with you. I told you. I gave it to you before. I mean, this is not really going to happen because these two bishops are most likely going to get traded. Knight coming to d4, I don't think is that impossible. That's very much a possible idea. But it most likely is going to be this knight versus this knight in the endgame, right? Fair enough. So, okay. Now let's start calculating. So we have spent a reasonable amount of time thinking about this. And this is, again, very important that we do this. That's how you understand the position. Then you can make much better decision. What should black play now? Obviously, I want you to come up with some candidate moves and tell me what would be your best way to control. So we are going to do small sequences. Remember, this is not a super forcing position. So don't try to calculate too much in depth. But the more variations you give me with an evaluation, the better it is for you to come up very close to the actual answer. So Vihan, 1, 2, 3 candidate moves, okay? I'm not going to call out all the candidate moves yet, but first I want all of you to type in the candidate moves, and then I will tell what the moves are. So you remember that, Vihan. Okay, I've gotten 1, 2, 3 moves from 9. Wait, Alexander Wang, you're giving me moves for white. If it's white's turn, I just win by taking the knight. It's not white's turn. It's black to move, of course, yeah? And Aditya Das is also thinking the same thing. It's black's turn to play. Obviously, white just played c4 and it's black's turn. All right, now let's talk about all the possible moves that I've heard so far. So these are the options. I got knight b4. I got bishop c6. I got knight f4. I got bishop a8. I got bishop a6. What else did I get? I got rook c7. I'm really going to doubt rook c7 a little bit, but it's there. Knight f6. Rook d8 perhaps. It won't be, we can eliminate a lot of things very quickly. Yeah, Aradhya, looks like you already did. So again, candidate moves are not all possible moves. It's usually moves that you think are good. And we can eliminate some of these moves very quickly. For example, both rook d8 and rook c7, I will eliminate. Rook d8, what will white play? Just type in chat. It's super easy. It shouldn't, yeah. Like, I just, in fact, move my knight anywhere I win, but knight takes c5, I pick up a pawn and I'm just winning. Game over. And rook b6, rook c7, now what? Knight anywhere again, yeah? Because there is a pin and there's a back rank checkmate. Maybe to be precise, I'll go knight b6, yeah? Because if I go knight e5, can I play f6 and survive? It should be losing. But okay, yeah, I think knight b6, I was thinking if they can play rook a6. But okay, knight a4. I simply get out of the way. Yeah? So, and then eventually I win the knight. Okay. So rook, we eliminate these two moves. And let's look at the rest of the moves. Again, I'm going to eliminate one more move, which is bishop c6. Because bishop c6, I'm going to take the pawn. And I'm not so sure why that's going to work. Again, it needs to be a move that you really feel like is going to work. So now we are left with these 5 different moves. Yeah, If you move the bishop out of the way, definitely you're hitting this knight. And if you move the knight out of the way, you have these three main options. So fair enough. Now let's do some calculation, yeah? You can all come up, start doing your calculation to say which move you really want to calculate. Half of your decision making will actually happen right here. This is the most critical point. Because whatever move you pick to calculate, you're going to spend probably next 5 to 10 minutes on this. And if it turns out to be a bad move, then you're probably not going to find the best one. Are you sure you can eliminate it that quickly? Let's see. Oh, yeah. I think fair enough. I think Vihan has a point. I think we can eliminate knight f6 very quickly. Austin May, I'm not so sure if you can. Oh, actually, no, sorry. Yeah, Austin May, I don't think your elimination is that simple. Let's talk about it. Yeah, knight f6, I think you can take and go rook d7. So for that reason, I think knight f6 looks kind of bad. I'm not so sure if you can eliminate knight f4 and knight b4 for the reason that you gave me, Austin May. I don't think so. In fact, it needs to be calculated definitely more further, yeah? If you're typing a move, type it to private chat. In general, any general observations, you can put it in chat to everyone. Well, Vihan, why did you go a little bit more in depth? Now, one, of course, is that you're trying to remember some variations. The second thing is also calculating a little bit more. What happens after that? I want you to calculate a little bit more. Think of all the candidate moves for white after the move you picked. And I want you to think what is the best option for white after that and go further with that. Yeah, we're not using that, guys. Today, I'm just doing screen share. We're not doing anything else. Simple, good old screen share. Alexander Wang, that's a definite logical idea, but here you have to calculate. So one of the suggestions that is being made is that you can go knight b4, knight c6, and knight d4. Yes. If you ask me, that is one of my positional ideas. But tactically, will knight b4 survive? I don't know. You have to tell me that. Narayan, what is the evaluation in that variation? So Aradhya is saying he doesn't like both those moves because interesting. Okay. We'll discuss a little bit more on that. Roy, I'm not sure. Bishop d7. Where are you talking about bishop d7? You mean to say bishop takes b7? Okay. Yeah, makes sense. Okay. So yeah, I think your variation needs a little bit more improvement. Okay. I'm going to first talk about this because a lot of you have given me this variation. So let's consider this, okay? So after knight b4, bishop takes b7, I have to take rook takes b7 and knight takes c5. This is like fair enough. It's the most forcing sequence. What is the evaluation in this? Let's see what you guys come up with. So rook b c7 is definitely one of the response. Slightly better for white. I'm not so sure. You have to be a little careful about the move that you pick, I guess. Okay, but we'll see. Yeah, I think the variation that some of you are giving is rook b c7. And for that, some of you have given me a very good move for white. Knight e4, yeah? And if white plays knight e4, isn't white just up a pawn because black cannot take on rook takes e4 because of knight d6? I'm simply up a pawn and I'm winning the game, right? Roger, rook b b8. I like that idea. Rook b b8, definitely very interesting, but it's still not so obvious, I think. Rook b b8. What will white play? So the line we're talking about is knight to b4. I will not draw, so knight to b4, bishop takes b7, rook takes b7, knight takes c5. Now we were looking at rook c7 and we figured that failed to knight e4 and knight d6. And we are thinking, can I play rook b8? White will play knight to d7 again. Correct. Knight to d7 again hits that pawn. And then I can play b3 next move and I'm completely up a pawn. Yeah. So I think rook c7 also is failing. Rook b8 is also failing. If those two move fails, I know for sure white is simply better. Yeah. White is up a pawn. I don't see any other move for black in that position. So between the two knight moves, if you can play knight b4 or knight f4, obviously knight b4. Let's see if there's any difference, by the way, guys. I mean, we still have this move and someone eliminated this very quickly too. I don't know. We'll have to discuss that too. Yep, Vihan has a point. When the knight is on f4, there is an open b file. So definitely adds more complexity in that. You cannot simply do bishop takes, rook takes, and knight c5 because I'll play rook b2. And also, knight to f4 has this sneaky little thread. If the bishop gets traded, I can go knight e2 check and knight d4. Getting to d4 square in some kind of a faster way is possible. Of course, this will only work if this knight is out of here and not taking the pawn. If c5 is gone, I cannot go to d4 anymore. Yeah. Correct. Correct. So let's evaluate this variation now. Yeah. Or actually, before we do that, how about we also evaluate bishop a6? So I think I'm going to kind of direct you guys to do each and every variation and say what we want. In a game, typically what you will do is you will pick the one that you think is the best. And that'll be much better. But here, since we're doing some calculation exercise, calculation and judgment, I will call out. Okay, bishop a6 need to be evaluated. Let's see what the best variations. So when I ask for evaluation, typically I want a sequence of moves which you think is the best for white and black, and in the end, an evaluation. Plus equals equals plus something. Okay, Narayan, you can go further than that. I want you to go further than that. Because I think at that point, you can calculate more. Black has only one move there. Otherwise, black is completely lost. Zoe, I like where you are. Maybe you can go a little bit more, Zoe. I think you can, again, you are also in a good place, but maybe just one or two more moves. So Vihan, you remember that? That's very good. But I want you to come back to this line, Vihan. Bishop a6 is what we're looking at. I want you to give me a variation for bishop a6. Aradhi, I'm not so sure if I'm that worried about that last move. I think that will be very drawish in that variation that you're giving me. In Royal, in your variation, I will play rook c d8. Possibly trading off everything will go into an equal bishop endgame. Actually, there's still more in that too, but you have to calculate. Black has good drawing chances. Okay. All right, you've all given me this. Yeah. So if I'm going to give up a pawn, Zoe, I will trade bishop. So I'll actually play bishop d5 in that last position. Bishop takes d5, pawn takes d5, rook takes d5, and I'll show you d4 is. So I'm going to show this. So bishop a6, and we were all calculating pawn takes d5. By the way, I think most of you jumped into this right away. There are other moves here too. Are there any other candidate moves here? Yeah, there is a simple knight e5 also in this position. Yeah. Knight takes c5 will run into bishop takes c4. I think this should be very straightforward, and I don't see any advantage at all. In fact, it looks very straightforward equality right now. Yeah. But knight e5, definitely you have to look. Because now, again, you're going to take this knight and the knight has to move. And when the knight moves, you have clear domination of the d file. You have clear domination with the bishop also. So with this bishop moving out of the diagonal, the f3 bishop is also dominating. So you have to consider that too. But okay, let's look at the most forcing sequence that we are all calculating. So here I again got two moves. One is d takes e6, one is bishop g4. Now, I want to evaluate d takes e6 very precisely. That is the forcing move. Pawn takes, sorry, not pawn takes. Of course, I cannot do that. And let's play rook takes d1 check, rook takes d1, and then pawn takes. So now again, here, there is only one real forcing move. You can play rook e1, I'll play king f7. Yeah, it's not going to be a big deal. But rook d6 is very strong. You have to know. Again, the reason I want you to push through this variation as much as possible because it's forcing. Think about this. There's no other move that's so dangerous. I mean, I can play so many moves, but nothing is really dangerous. Rook d6 is dangerous. You're attacking two things. But this is good for white already. So do we need calculating? Very good question, Angela. The problem is, I'm not so sure though. What if this reaches a drawn in game? And this is where I was going to ask this to Zoe too. I'll ask you as well. So I go bishop c4 and you play b3. Up to this point, we kind of saw all of this, right? And again, I have to go bishop d5. If at this point I give up the pawn with the bishops on the board, my drawing chances are very low. And you should all know this. Same color bishop endgame, extra pawn, much easier to try to win. So black's drawing chances remain in trading bishops. Bishop takes d5, pawn takes d5, rook takes d5. Again, all of this up until this point is very clear. Now, what is the move you should calculate for black? There's only one move. c4. Again, I'm pushing my calculation a little bit only because remember this, winning a pawn does not mean you're winning the game. So you need to get to a point where you're comfortable. So c4, b takes c4 is forced pretty much. Rook takes c4, threatening mate. So you have to spend one move, maybe king f1 or something. And now I have one, king f1 looks very logical. Yeah, I can more than g3 or f3. Actually, yeah, king f1 makes the most sense. Well, g3, I can play, the king will go to g2. It's better to probably bring the king towards the center, right? Austin makes, so I think king f1 makes a little bit more sense. So now, if you ask me, I'm not 100% sure. Because, I mean, what is comfortable for me? I'm comfortable because pawns are on both sides. Rook and pawn in game, you're up a pawn, and there are pawns on both sides. Hey, great. So that definitely is comfortable. If this is just one side, I know it's like a dead draw, but pawns are on both sides, I'm comfortable. But if you ask me, do I know if I'm winning this in game? I'm not so sure. So that's where your decision comes in. So let me go all the way to the back and say, okay, if bishop a6 is played, and if you have all the information that we have right now, you're going to play one pawn up, rook and pawn in game, or you can play knight e5, which might be nothing, by the way, because the other one, you're at least pawn up. In this, you might not get anything. So what would you pick? So I want all of you to make a decision, either cd5 or knight e5. By the way, knight e5, I'll just tell you, yeah, knight e7, I think is forced because I don't want to allow knight c6. So I will go knight e7. I don't know, maybe rook d6 kind of moves and double up. Yeah. So, I mean, you can see you're very pleasant. I mean, you're not winning anything. You're not up a pawn. You're not up anything, but you will have amazing pieces. You will play b3, you will play rook d6, and you will have good pieces. And if you play cd5, you'll be up a pawn and rook and pawn in game. All right, I want every one of you to make a decision. Let's go. Angela's like, I want to play. Well, Angela, whether you like it or not, this is an endgame. I'm taking the pawn. Narayan, you're either deciding to take the pawn and go to the rook and pawn in game we just saw, which is almost a forced sequence, or you're simply playing knight e5 with strong pieces and not taking that in game. cd5, cd5. Austin Tang wants to play knight e5. Aradia wants to play knight e5. We could have done a poll. Yes, that's okay. Next time, we'll find moves for the poll. All right, guys, I'm going to give you 10 more seconds. Pick a move. Aryan, did you find a new move? Are you playing bishop takes d5? Interesting. I didn't even look at that. Can you actually play bishop d5? What if I play rook d7? Somehow I feel like you're losing a pawn. Yeah, from winning a pawn in game, you don't somehow lose the c4 pawn. You don't want to do that. Knight e5, never let the bishop get active. Okay, good. Time's up. Well, Here's the decision. If you ask me, in a practical game, it seems to me that knight e5 is very, very active. So I'm hoping I would have chosen that, but there's no guarantee. I'm not going to claim that I would have made the best decision. The best decision is knight e5. The end game is not easy to win. So c takes d5 would lead pretty much to that forced end game, very drawish. But of course, practical play, some of you have mentioned, I totally agree. It's not like it's easily drawable. So black will face difficulties, particularly against a higher rated player. Someone mentioned that that rook end game will be more painful for a higher rated player to sit and just defend. Having said that, objectively, this is much, much stronger. In black's pieces are very tied up. And white can create a lot of threats. And okay, there are still some critical moves like f6 that needs more calculation, but it looks really nice. I don't think you can go that easily. Yeah. For example, let's say I go rook b6. Yeah, I think knight f5. I'll play rook b6. Actually, yeah, I would want to play rook b6. Yeah, rook b6 looks logical. After knight d4, I want to play. I mean, I don't even mind trading at that point. Look at your bishop. Seems super stuck to me. I mean, black is fighting back. I'm not going to deny with that. It just feels like my rook, knight, and bishop are very, very well placed. But anyways, let's go back. What about knight f4? Let's calculate knight f4, everyone. Now, next move. Knight b4 instead of knight e7? Okay, let me just see. Yeah, Vihan, you did knight f4, so you can do another variation. You have to give me more variation with the other move that you had suggested. Okay, hold on. Someone is asking why not bishop a6, knight e5, and knight b4. It looks dangerous. Let's check. So the only escape route is c6. Or of course you have knight c2 and knight d4. I probably will do the same. I mean, your knight on b4 might get stuck, Eric. That's the only reason. I feel like it looks active, but at some point a3 is going to come, yeah? Which would make your life very difficult. No, knight c2, knight d4, I might even have knight c6. Yes, I think I have knight c6. I go rook here. And if you go knight d4, I have knight c6, yeah? Back rank checkmate to the rescue. And this looks like I'm at least going to win a pawn. So maybe you will have some chances, but I'm at least going to pick up a pawn. So, okay, let's go back and let's analyze knight f4. Now, what is white's? So again, be very thorough in finding the critical moves. You have the other variation, Vihan, that you're supposed to give me, which you were starting to calculate. You gave me another move, which you told was the best move. If you think that's the best move, I want you to calculate that. And we're going to push ourselves in that variation as much as possible. Correct. That's the funny part of calculation, yeah? You finish the whole thing and then you realize that's just one move. Well, I was very clear about it, Austin May. One thing I want you to understand is here, I'm making you calculate and evaluate, so it's okay. I'm picking each and every variation. But in a game, it's extremely important that you pick your candidate moves and you pick a move that makes the most sense as your first move to calculate. Because like you said, you go down the rabbit hole, you're not probably going to look at anything else, particularly if it's as interesting as one of the variations we saw. It's going to take you like 10 minutes to go through that. And if you have 3 more moves in that position, you're not going to come back and calculate all of it. In a game, most of the battle is about you picking the right move that you think makes sense, using your intuition, using the understanding of your position. So Roger, but we saw the difference between knight on f4 is I will play rook takes b2. So Narayan, continue more on that. What will black play there? So the whole idea of knight f4 is that when you play bishop b7, rook b7, knight c5, I will take on b2. Are you sure, Aradhya, is better for white in the last position? What if black plays like a4 or something? I will be adding more pressure on your pawns on the queen side, even though you have that extra pawn. So Pranav, same thing. Pranav Satish, I'm going to do the same thing. My idea would be to, so if you think this structure is actually better for white because of the queenside majority, it's not 100% true. If this pawn were to be on b6, I would agree with you. Typically, that's just plain better for white. But this structure actually gives a lot of minority attacking chances. Yeah, black has only 2 pawns. But if you save the pawn with b3, I will, again, crack it open with a4. So I would not be so comfortable with the structure for white. Yeah, Aradhya, that was my point. Yeah. Yeah, Sifir, that's the point. If you simply play bishop b7, rook b7, b3, and let's say I play something like f6 or f6, or yeah, f6 makes more sense. So Narayan, you remembered, very good. Now Narayan, you have to move on to the next variation. Oh, actually, you're right. Austin May is pointing out that if you play f6, the knight on d7 gets trapped. I didn't even think about it. That's right. The knight's not coming out. Well, you figure it out, Narayan. What do you want to do next? You calculate. I mean, you still have not given me something okay for black, because whatever you're seeing seems to be worse. So you have to figure it out. I don't think it's forced at all, Sifir. There is something very interesting for white. And Pranav, the variation after bishop takes f3, you have to eliminate. Yeah. By the way, by that token, this is not definitely my first move I would calculate in a game. I mean, it's kind of taking the bishop out of the long diagonal and going towards something that's not so logical. So that's usually not my first choice. The same way, I would never look at variations where I'm allowing this unless I have a very good reason. If I'm going to allow g takes f3, I need to have a very good reason, because I'm totally destroying my pawn structure. I will only allow that if I have some enough compensation. Yeah. Okay. So the problem with this is, what is happening is you're all assuming some things. So let me ask you to take a step back, and I'm going to ask you to write down candidate moves, all candidate moves, anything that's reasonable after knight f4. We're on to something now, yeah? So Austin May, knight takes c5, knight e5, bishop takes b7, knight b6, bishop takes b7, knight takes c5, knight e5, knight b6. Okay, very good. Yeah. So let's talk about this. Now you're all giving me a bunch of moves after knight f4. But the only 2 moves I saw in your calculation was this and this. In fact, not even knight c5, because okay, that was allowing the double pawn. So mostly your calculation was all bishop takes b7, rook takes b7, bishop takes b7, rook takes b7. I have other moves other than bishop takes b7, which is precisely to be knight b6 and knight e5. And of course, you should calculate knight b6 because it's a threatening move. And most importantly, it does not allow bishop f3. Right? Knight f4, knight b6 threatens knight c8 and knight a7. So Austin May now wants to do knight b6. After knight b6, I don't have a lot of options. Yeah, I think the rook does not have a lot of good squares. Now let's think about it. If I go to some random square, white is going to send this rook to d7. So that's happening. So, and that's completely losing. So rook b8 is like the only move I can play. Yeah. And after rook b8, bishop takes b7, rook c b7, knight a4. That's okay, but I'm not still that impressed, because okay, actually I would say that is a very pleasant endgame for white. I agree with you, Austin May, because knight on a4 and pawn on b3, then this is a constant problem for black. But you cannot win anything yet. In black is still defending, so you are not winning anything yet. So, but there is rook d7 though. I think some of you have given that to me now. So knight f4, there is knight b6, rook b8, rook d7. Looks very strong. What will black play there? Yep, that's my only move. Pranav Satish, that's correct. Austin May, good. Any other move, I'm done. I want everyone to find it. Black's only defensive resource. Black is stuck in like a never-ending pin. Alexander Wang, that's correct. Austin Tang, you cannot play bishop f3. If you play bishop takes f3, I will play rook takes a7. I will be up in exchange. You might have some compensation with my double pawns, but I don't think it's enough. All your queenside pawns will fall. Zafir, that's correct. Black's defense, Zoe, possible. That's too slow though. Even if you play knight g6, knight e5, actually knight g6, I can simply play like rook e1 or something and stop you if I need. Or actually, I'll play rook d1, threatening mate. Okay, so I'm going to give the move. Angela, you're right. The only move for black is rook a6. That's my only chance to survive. And now, how will you proceed? So again, we have kind of marched through some forcing calculation. This is not too difficult if you follow through. After knight f4, if you did your candidate moves, knight b6 would have been on the top of your list. And after knight b6, since if you spot rook d7, then rook b8 is almost the only move. Then after rook b7, you realize black is really, really stuck. So the only forcing move that black has is rook a6. And you should be able to achieve this much calculation. So rook a6, and now what will white play? Okay, so a lot of you are threatening mate. If you threaten mate, I'll defend, guys. That's all. I mean, like, just assume that I will play something like g6 or, I don't know, king f8 maybe? Yeah, king f8 makes more sense. I cannot play g6 because, actually, yeah, I can play g6 too, I think. Actually, a king f8 will lose because you'll play rook check, takes, rook d7 check, and then take, yeah. That's correct. Actually, a lot of positions, when you get to a decision-making point, they're usually very rich. Normal positions, nothing much, but decision-making points are always like a lot of branches, particularly here, very close to an endgame. Angela, you're onto something. That's right. Ziffer, nice. I see two of them solved it. A couple of them already knew it. Right, Roger, nice. Eric, nice. We're basically calculating knight f4, knight b6, rook b8, rook d7, rook a6. That's the position. For now, unfortunately, after knight a4, bishop takes f3, pawn takes f3, you will end up with this really bad pawn structure. And also, you probably have a very active rook. I cannot say no to that, but I don't know if it's going to justify. Austin May, very good question. After you have calculated a very long variation, should you blitz out the following moves? Generally, never blitz out. But I have noticed one problem with sometimes with my students. Of course, this also happened to myself too. That is, you bleed time. Like you calculate a variation for 4 moves or 5 moves, and after every move you take 5 minutes. Now that's a bad way to play, right? Unless there is new information. So there are 2 things that will stop me from making a move. One is that after I calculate a sequence, I found something new, right? My opponent played something new, or in my calculation, suddenly I found something new. So now I'm going to pause. I'm not going to follow through with my sequence because I need to solve something else. The second reason is sometimes I've not even solved my problem. So I'm thinking 10 minutes. I don't have a full answer to a sequence, but I know this is the logical way for me to go. So I'm making a practical decision. I made my move. But the following sequence, I've not solved it in my head yet. I don't have a comfortable solution yet. So then I will spend more time. So very specific reasons when I will spend time back to back. Otherwise, don't blitz it. but just basic blunder check. Usually I will not take more than like a couple of minutes as for a follow-up move. It's also a good indicator of how you're calculating. If you make moves, if you think 10 minutes, you make a move, and then you have to think again, that means you're missing your opponent's moves. That means your calculation is not strong. Yeah, I think it does. So that's the thing. I think pretty much all of you found the answer now. Knight f4 is actually losing now because we have the most forcing sequence. We found knight b6, and after rook b8, we have rook d7. Again, very strong move. Now, if black plays slowly, like I said, white is just much stronger. Even now, actually, knight a4, knight c5 is a strong threat because the pin, as long as the pin still stays, that's a very strong threat. This is the only move. And the funny thing is white has one winning move. Everything else black is actually doing okay. I mean, like knight a4 is the other move that was suggested. It's okay. I mean, like it's a better endgame for white, but it's not like losing. But the move that wins on the spot, give 10 more seconds for those who did not answer. Yeah, now I think everyone has it. Mostly. Knight c8, yeah, beautiful tactics. Nice kind of interference kind of tactic. If bishop takes rook d8 is mate. If rook d8, rook c8, bishop b7 is a nice fork. Best part, I was playing white and my opponent fell for this. So I was actually able to play knight c8 over the board. My opponent was an international master. But of course, after walking into this sequence, he couldn't do anything. Like once he played knight f4, right? This is not going to change. Because think about this. After knight b6, he doesn't have any other option. This is pretty much the only choice for him. And after this, again, there is not much. I mean, he can sit around and wait. But okay, also he kind of missed this knight c8 shot. Yeah, if you play h6, right? Okay, let's say play knight a4. The pin is kind of permanent, right, Narayan? How will you release the pin? I'm next move going to play knight c6. So the only thing you can do is give up your exchange. At some point, you have to play bishop takes f3. I don't see how else you're going to survive this. Or you will end up being down a whole piece. Yeah. So the funny thing is we still don't have a good move for black. The last bishop a6 either went into a pawn down in game or went into a worse position where all the pieces were badly placed. Knight f4 is downright losing. That's what happened in the game. Black can actually still survive this. Any possible thought? Bishop a8. Fair enough. Let's think about bishop a8. And again, there's a logical way to think about this because why did bishop a6 fail? Takes, and rook d6 was one of the reasons how white won a pawn. Yeah. Because the bishop on a6 and the pawn on e6, I hit both the pawns. I mean, both that, and then that's how I actually won a pawn. So that makes me think bishop a8 should be better because I won't have that idea. I won't have rook d6. And also I will have a chance to maybe trade off the bishops. Yeah. Okay, what happens after bishop 8? Last calculation. Let's go. Hold on. Let me check your variation, Vihan. I know you typed it a while ago. But actually, I asked you something, Vihan, that you needed to... Can you type in your variation again, Vihan? I want to check it. Private chat, of course. Yeah, don't chat it everyone. Pranav, I don't know if I can give 1-0 in that position. How is it 1-0? Wait, how are you winning a piece? So Vihan, I want you to give your c takes d5 variation. I don't know what your c takes video. The last two moves in your c takes d5 variation seems illegal. So I don't know what you really meant there. That's what I was saying. Pranav, I think you're off with something. You're not winning any piece. Yeah. Okay, at some point rook d1. Okay, so the move you're playing, let's say I play king f7 or something. I don't know. And king f6. Rook c6 maybe. I mean, I can see the appeal. It looks like black is hanging by a thread, but I'm still hanging there. Vihan, just give me the variation after c takes d5. One move after another. The last two moves you gave me in that variation, Vihan, doesn't make sense in the c takes d5 variation. Austin May, you have a good point. Rook and pawn in game, not upper pawn, definitely not winning. Even upper pawn, we find thought it to be not so good. So Vihan, you cannot go to b3. White bishop is on f3. How did I end up on b3? Ah, so that is the move you're playing. Let's check. But why that move? That doesn't seem natural, yeah? Why is white playing that move here? Particularly if your assessment is equal, I would definitely try to do better for white, yeah? So Eric is suggesting... Eric, there's a major problem. When I play bishop takes f3, I am attacking your rook on d1. Your idea is very nice, but unfortunately it doesn't work. Yep. Okay, so just adding on after bishop a8, I think pretty much, again, all of you are giving pawn takes d5 as one of the main sequence. Let's calculate that because that is a forcing move. Of course, that's the first thing we need to calculate. Rook takes d7. Again, I don't have anything much other than taking. I mean, d6 cannot, I mean, it's a nice pass pawn, but it cannot win. In fact, I'll double up and take it at some point. Here, rook d1, again, is pretty forcing. I cannot do much. And again, I could take with the rook or I could take with the bishop. I would definitely first calculate rook takes d1 because, oh, you kept thinking the c4 pawn was there. But once you make the move, you kind of realize, yeah. Bishop takes d1 is also possible, Vihan. I think bishop d1 and bishop comes here. But yes, not only bishop d5 in your variation, I think there was also c4. That'll also be a problem, yeah. I would not say that position white has nothing. If you're going rook e8, okay, but I can see how black is holding on. White's rook is active, but agreed. I would say that black is holding on. So rook takes d1. I think the main point for black, I think Austin May mentioned at some point, is that there is enough counterplay. Even though black's pawns are so terribly placed, this is, well, actually, I have two options, yeah. I can take on e6 or I can even do this because even if I lose a pawn, like this is winning a pawn, you have an intermediate move, but this endgame looks completely drawn, yeah, because I have enough counterplay on the b file. So I can go like rook b8 and then when you play b3, I can just go like a4 and immediately consolidate the queen side, and then you will have 3 versus 2 with a double pawn. There's no chance of winning this, yeah. And if you don't, this is just a completely drawn rook and pawn game. Even with that extra pawn, we couldn't win. So this should definitely not win, yeah. The only other option for white would be to, yeah, I think this is easier for black. In fact, I would say as black, you should calculate bishop f3. Because if this pawn captures, there is still some more play for me. Some rook d7, rook d6, I think a lot of you are calculating that. But okay, black can hold on to this too. Yeah, but black can still hold on. I don't see how black is losing this in game. Plenty of counterplay, yeah. Correct. Bishop a8 holds. So here black has only one correct move, bishop a8, and the position would be drawn endgame. Black still has to fight, but still a drawn endgame. Every other move white has advantage, but yeah, in the game knight f4 was played. And this is how the game ended. After knight c8, my opponent resigned. Correct. Well, only move for equality, Austin May. All the other moves, there are some moves maybe you can end up with some problems and still play on, but yeah, only move with equality. All right, I guess that's a good place for us to wrap up.